So the Vivo X Fold 5, similar to that of the Z Fold 7, has that longer, slender look compared to the Oppo Find N6. This being a 6.6-inch external screen, and this one being a 6.5-inch. There's quite a bit of difference in screen real estate. If you look here, we'll turn them both on, and you can see there side by side. It's quite a bit wider here on the Oppo versus the Vivo, and it's very, very easy to see. They're about the same height, but then when you turn them like this, you can see it's definitely more narrow. And if you can see here, zoom in on it, the border is quite a bit wider here on the Vivo. Now, of course, this is last year's model, the Vivo X Fold 5, and the Vivo X Fold 6 is expected out sometime this June, but there's no change in dimension. So I suspect we're looking at the same comparison we see here. Now, the biggest part of the comparison is going to be the cameras. As you can see, they're both Chinese phones, so they both adopted that round camera housing, and they're very similar in thickness and size, although I think the Vivo is a bit thicker in the phone and in the camera bump, but there's a reason why. And we'll talk about that more when we get into the cameras. And then that's the exciting part. Zeiss versus Hasselblad. So you want to make sure you stick around for that. Let's go ahead and talk about the look and feel and a little bit about the operating system. Let's go. So what both of these clearly have in common is they are foldables. And when you look at them, they are thin foldables. But the interesting thing is when they're closed, the Vivo is considered a 9.2 millimeters, and this one is a 8.9. And can you really see that difference? I know I can't, especially when you put them up side by side. They look pretty much the same. I think the major difference is this camera bump is a little bit larger on the Vivo. And then, of course, looking at them side by side here, you can see they both have the really nice hinge. And I think the Vivo looks a little smaller because of the color, basically. And then on the bottom, they have that micro USB-C, and you can see there's just no border around that thing. That's how slim they are. You got the SD card right here on the bottom, and it's over here on a different side. And then the speakers. We got a speaker here on the bottom of the Oppo and right there on the Vivo. And look at the other side. Same thing. It's on the same side on the Vivo, but it's on the opposite side of the Oppo. So what that basically means is when you are listening to them and they are separated, such as this one here, we'll open it up. See, you have a speaker on this side and a speaker on this side down here. So that gives you a right and left. Where on this one, it's centered right there. And then when you open it, they're both on the right side. I got it upside down, or both on the left side. Now, of course, when you're gaming them, holding them like this, the sound's pretty much the same because it's right and left. Or if you're viewing a video or something in this landscape mode, you're going to find that the sound's going to be about the same. Now, looking at the outside of these things open up, you've got the similar look and design. Of course, you have the flash on the outside of the camera bump, giving more room in here. And this is a color sensor versus the Vivo doesn't have this because the flash is taking up that space. Now, the camera system, it basically goes like this. You have a 200 megapixel main lens on the Oppo and a 50 megapixel main lens on the Vivo. And as far as the zoom lens on both of them, they both have a telescoping lens from a 50 megapixel camera, so they should be pretty comparable there. And then a 50 megapixel ultra wide. And then the selfie cameras, you got the one right here on the outside, which are both 20 megapixels, and same with the inside one. They're both 20 megapixels, and they're both located in the corner, as you can see here. Now, although they're both 20 megapixels on the Oppo, it's a slightly larger sensor. And as we all know, typically larger sensors means better photography. But of course, with these two, we're talking Zeiss versus Hasselblad, and we will look at those photos shortly. Now, looking at the OS on both of them, they are both very similar, very, very smooth. And the difference is here on the Vivo, we have the Snapdragon Gen 3 chip. And over here on the Oppo, of course, is the Snapdragon 8 Elite 5 chip. 7 cores, but I don't think I'm really finding that to be a big difference. But as far as processing power, you should have quite a bit more. And it's going to have a better shelf life than we have with the Vivo, having that Gen 3 chip in it. let's go ahead and take a look at the specs here in the settings. Now you can see right here, confirm this is an 8 Gen 3, and then it's got 512 gigabytes of storage. That's just what it came out with, 16 gigabytes of RAM, and you got the same thing here, 512 storage. You got the 8 Elite Gen 5, 16 gigabytes of RAM. And then you can see they both have the 6,000 milliamp silicone carbon battery. So that's really great. They're running pretty much neck and neck on battery life. And they are both running Android 16. Right here, we go to version on this one, and you can see Android 16. Now, a big difference between the two of them, of course, is software. Over here on the Vivo, this is actually a Chinese ROM. And the reason why I got that is because back at the time, they were saying that it had all the Google support and all the Google services, and you weren't missing out by getting the Chinese ROM. Now, I did find that out not to be quite so over time, but let me just show you the differences here, where on the Oppo, you do have the full Google suite. And what I really think is nice is the news feed, where I can actually put everything I'm interested in right here. And on the Vivo, not so much. I'm limited what I can put in here. If I put a news feed in here, it's all Chinese. I can't get Google's news feed there. Now, if I want the Google news feed, I just got to select it here, and then I can have it. So it's not that you can't get to it. It's just not in a nice, convenient place like you have here. Now, the home screen setup, it's pretty similar. I do like the way it works here. You can have the large folders or the smaller folders on both. And then you want the additional apps that's in the folder. You click on that down the bottom right, and you get them right here, and you can select them, which is pretty basic in the way all the others work, where you got it a little bit different here on the Oppo, where you can just scroll over and there they are. So I like that better. It just saves you a step, makes things a little bit faster. And what I like is when you go into search, you click something like G here on both of them. And what do you get? You get all the apps that are G here. Everything else disappears. So you have exactly what you want to select. Where here, like all the others, you get a bunch of other apps. It goes all the way into MN here on the screen. So it's just another thing that makes using it just a little bit more user-friendly and quick to use. So while we're here in G, just go ahead and run Geekenfetch on both of them. And you can see it opened up a little bit faster on the Oppo. And just to show you, that's the only app open. There's nothing else open on these. And let's go ahead and run Geekbench on both of them and see how they do. Well, as you see, that's pretty expected results. You've got 3400 single core versus 2190 and 7751 versus 6570. Now, I do have an issue with the Vivo, and it could just be my version, and I don't know if you can hear it or not. Let's pull this thing over, and you can see when I open it up, you can hear it crackle. There's bubbles there, and or something happening there. It crackles, but my finger joints do that as well. But I don't think that's something it should do. So hopefully they'll improve that on the upgraded Vivo X Fold 6. But don't have that issue here. And then there's that crease. Everybody's judging the crease. It's definitely got the crease still on the Vivo versus the Oppo Find N6, Oppo Find N6. There's nothing out there that's going to beat it as far as that crease goes. Now let's go ahead and jump into that battle everybody wants to see. Hasselblad versus Zeiss. Is one better than the other? And remember, the Oppo has the advantage of a 200 megapixel main shooter. Let's check them out. Okay, you see, you got them both side by side, the Vivo and the Oppo, and they're both at their ultra wide. Ultra wide, I don't really care to judge those all that much, but looks like they're both about the same. Look at that, there's a bird flying in the screen on the Oppo. So, but let's go on to the next photo. This is your single time, and this one is your 200 megapixel lens versus a 50 megapixel lens. And let's just do some quick clicking in here, and let's see if there's a big difference here when you zoom in. Is there a difference? Can you see a difference? 200 versus 50. The thing is, they're both bending, they're both bending down to 12 megapixels. Is there really a huge difference? I don't think so. Matter of fact, on the Vivo, it actually looks clearer to me when you zoom in this far. So I don't think the 200 megapixel is helping here, with it bending down to 12. Let's go on to the next photo. So on the next photo here, both of them here, this is zooming in at 3 times on both of them, and they both look pretty comparable. I like the blue sky here. It looks like that the Vivo darkens things a little bit. Well, let's go ahead and do a couple clicks here and zoom in and see if we can see something here. See if we can read things here a little bit and see if there's a difference in the two of them. I think you have a little more clarity on the Vivo actually than you do on the Oppo. Of course, you have a little more light here because see how the flowers lit up here? It's kind of dark here on the Vivo. It's just all on color processing. So I think the color processing might be a little bit better here on the Oppo than it is on the Vivo. And just taking the overall view of that shot, it'd be a personal preference which one you like better, but they are so doggone close. I don't think I would really call one a winner over the other. Now this next photo is going in at 6 times zoom. You can see here 139 meters versus 142 meters, but they're both at that 6 time zoom. And I use that simply because the Oppo has it built in, but I wanted to match them up and they look pretty much the same. And even if we clicked in a couple, I don't think you're getting anything different on either one of them. So they're about the same. I mean, look at that train in the background. Everything foothill, just a little bit different angle, but they are both the same. Even that tree, you can see the detail in that tree and that flower. I mean, they're really close to the same. And this is another angle down the street. I wanted to include some shade in there to see how they do. What is the range here on both of them? I like the color on the Oppo better. I don't know, the shadows are being brought up a little more here on the Vivo, and these are just your standard 50 megapixel, well, 50 megapixel on the Vivo, but 200 megapixel on the Oppo. Does one look clearer than the other? Zoom in a couple. Let's look at that sign. You can't really see anything on that road sign. Can you read what it is? Not really. Can you read it clearer on this one? Zoomed in a little more. Not really. You can, but you lose the red because it is actually red. So I think we've got color accuracy right here. So that color sensor on the Oppo is really doing its job here. Now let's go on to another photo. This is zoomed in at 6 times on both of them here. And you can see they're both doing pretty close to the same. But I think they're both really just as compatible. And as far as the clarity, it's the same on both. I don't see one better than the other. Look at that one-way sign. Is one clearer than the other? I think they're pretty much evenly matched. I think the difference is the color sign. See here, the building just a little bit different. And I do have to say that I believe the coloring is more accurate on the Oppo. And I would know because I was there. So let's go in actually even closer. And at 10 times, what do we get? We get clear pictures on both. I was thinking that the Vivo would actually do better, but it's not so much. They're about the same. And let's look at the size of these files. Look at the image here. This one is 4.3 megapixels. So you can see it's bending down to 12 megapixels. I think we're doing the same thing over here, bending down. Yep, same thing on both of them. We'll go ahead and zoom in on this one so we're evenly zoomed. They're about the same. A little bit lighter here, I guess, here on the Vivo. But what's interesting is it looks darker blacks here, and the blacks over here looking a little blue. So I think there may be a little more color added to the Vivo, but I think the Oppo is just a little bit more accurate. But I got to tell you, folks, I think anybody would be happy with either one. And I'm just very impressed on how well Oppo is doing here when last year's model was pretty lousy. And then it looks like I did one more. This is a 40 times zoom on both. Why are you doing a 40 times zoom? I don't know. But right there, they are even par on both of them. These are all the bending down photos. There's no high resolution here. So let's take a look at some high resolution shots. Now these are high resolution. You can see here by the file size, 18 megabytes. You can see here by the pixel size. And over here, it's even more because this is 200 megapixels. So you can get a larger photo here on this. But when you crop in, does it really make a difference? Let's see here. We'll crop in a few times here and see. Can you see that sign here with the 200 megapixel? You can, so that's better than the 12 megapixel bending down. Let's go ahead and close this back up and let's zoom in here and see what do we get. Can we see that sign? You can make it out this time, which remember we couldn't make it out on the bending. Now, if you go a little closer, you can see the 200 megapixel does make a difference here, but not a whole lot. Really not enough to make it worth having a 200 megapixel, because guess what? You get the same results with the 50 megapixel setting on the Oppo. Well, we're going to just go on to the next photo here. This is 50 megapixel on both, and with 50 megapixel on both, you can actually zoom in 3 times, and that's what's going on. They're both zoomed in the same amount. Let's go ahead and double check the size here. You can see this is 6:9 here, and this one is 6,000 by 9. They're the same. Go ahead and crop right in there. Now you see what I mean? Who needs the 200 megapixel when you can zoom in 3 times with the 50 megapixel? Because look, that is a whole lot better. That's a lot clearer than what we got on the 200 megapixel, because it would not crop in or zoom in per se. But when they do zoom in with these things, basically they crop in. But this one has 3 times zoom, and that's a whole lot better than what we were getting on the 200 megapixel lens. So you can see they're pretty much the same. It's just the difference is the color science. So let's go on to the next photo here. This again is the 200 megapixel here, I believe. You can tell by the size. No, this one's the 50 megapixel. So I did the 50 megapixel on this one to keep the comparison even. So let's go ahead and crop in on these. And you can see here, see this guy on the bench here. Are they the same? They are pretty much the same. But what's really interesting is now you have a little more light on the Vivo and it's a little darker on the Oppo. So not quite sure what their color science is doing here, because I think the detail is better on the Vivo at this point. Very interesting. And then 3 times zoom on both of them. Again, the same thing. Lighter here on the Vivo, darker on the Oppo. So really, it's just kind of hit and miss between the two of them. As you can see, they're both something you would be pleased with as far as photo shooting. And I don't think you can complain about either. Is that 200 megapixel lens in the Oppo Find N6 an advantage? No, I don't think so. Let's move on. Let's check out the night photos. Okay, here's the night shot between both of them, and looks pretty comparable. Let's go ahead and do a couple quick zoom in like we typically do and see how they look. Now they both look really almost identical when you look at them. Check this out. Let's see the size here. Again, that's your standard bending down picture on both of them. So, and they look very, very compatible. So I think we're getting the same thing here at night. Let's go with another photo where there's more light. Same thing. Check it out. I don't see much different whatsoever between the two of them. This is just crazy. They're very, very similar. Let's go in a little bit closer. This is, I believe, a 3 times zoom on them. And what do we got? Pretty much the same thing. I think there might be a little bit more clarity down here on the brick. It could be just where their focal point is. Let's go ahead and do a couple clicks on this one, zoom in a little closer and see how they do. But I think they're pretty much the same. I think you're a little clearer on the Oppo is a little bit clearer here. You can see that here on the wording. So we're getting a little more clarity here at night on the Oppo on that photo. And then we go in 6 times. All right, what are we doing? I think we got a little more clarity still. Just a couple clicks and you can see that here. So still a little more clarity here. So maybe they're able to balance the processing a little bit better with their light sensor or their color sensor. So it's looking pretty good. So let's go down to the next photo. This right here is a 10 times zoom on both of them just to see how they're doing. They're doing pretty good. The ice cream sign, I think, again, just a little bit clear here on the Oppo. And then let's go in. This is a 20 times, I believe, on both of them. You know, you can't really make it out on either one of them. So I wouldn't I wouldn't write home about either one of these. They're about the same. So let's go on to the next photo here. This is a portrait at night, and we'll take another one here. And I think they're both doing pretty good. I think you get a little bit more light here on the Oppo, which, you know, actually in turn gives you a little more clarity. And the color of my jacket is more accurate. So the bokeh on both is about the same. So they're both, you know, I wouldn't complain about either one of them. And then this is the 3 times zoom on both of them for the portrait. And I think they're both, again, about the same. I do like the Oppo, and it's lighting things up just a little bit, so you get a little more clarity with it. So you can see even the nighttime photos are right there on top of each other, and the same results with the high resolution. So we're not even going to bother doing that. I'm just telling you, it's the same results. So let's check out a quick video so we can see how they do in video. And you can see in both, it was a bright day, and you can tell that by the Oppo. It's representing a more of a bright day. The Vivo makes it look like it's overcast, but there's no clouds in the sky. I mean, it's very bright out, and I think you could tell that by the Oppo. But it's going to be a personal preference because you do have a really lot of nice color here on the Vivo, but the detail on both of them is right there. Now, I'm not sure. I guess the Oppo is using its 200 megapixel camera to do this, but I think the clarity on both of them. Now the Oppo does have them sun flares, the light flares. You don't have that with the Vivo, so they're doing something right there. But this is going to be a personal preference. I think they're both right on, almost identical in their video, and neither one of them are shaky. They're both very steady. Now at night, it's a different story. You can see the washing of the vibrating here on the Oppo. They're just not quite controlling things. A little washboarding, I think is what they call it, something like that. It's doing that a little more here on the Oppo, but they both are still really clear when it comes to clarity. And then when they both go this light sign, they both adjust really well. I think you got a lot more color though on a Vivo because that's what they're doing. They're giving you a little more color. Now, I struggle with getting these to time together so we can see them, so you just have to bear with me. But you can see the clarity on both of them is right there. And sometimes the Oppo is brighter, as you can see right now, and sometimes the Vivo is. As far as clarity, I think they're both right there. I don't think one is better than the other. So I think you're getting the same quality in your night videos on either one of them. So this is pretty crazy. Now I'm going to go ahead and let the video play so you can hear the sound quality. Okay, we've got some background noise going on. So how are they doing here at night? And we've got a lot of darkness around me. Lighting up above. How are they looking? How am I sounding at night? Do you hear the background noise? Is it really that loud on camera? We'll have to find out in post. But we got the freeway over there, and we've got some background noise. Probably sounds like vacuuming going on. So we'll have to see how these look on camera in the studio. So there you go. The video at night, I think they're both pretty comparable as well. And of course, the audio is about the same on either one of them. Neither one of them really stand out to me. So I think you're going to get cameras on both of these very similar. And I tell you, I think the 200, again, is a gimmick. And I really don't think on the day-to-day you're going to get any different or better quality out of it than you do a good 50 megapixel lens. Now, I will tell you, though, up till now, Vivo, for me, has always beat out all the other phones on quality. Oppo is right there with it, and in some cases, beats it. They kind of trade off. But either way, I think you could be happy with either one of these phones. So now in doing this comparison, what have I learned? I've learned that the Vivo is definitely not a powerhouse, but it wasn't built for that. It's built for the camera. I mean, we're talking about a 2-year-old chip, or is it 3-year-old? I don't know. But it's at least 2 generations back from this one, and it still performs really well with the cameras. And what I really like about both of these, they don't use a whole lot of AI in their photography. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? I tested these two out, and they are very close. Are you excited about the Vivo X Fold 6 coming out, or you're still deciding whether you want to get the Find N6? Either way, I think you're going to be very pleased with the phone. But if you want the most current specs, then you do need to get the Oppo Find N6. Now, I've done a lot of battles lately with the Oppo against other phones. Check out my latest one here. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel and smash that like button because it really does help out. Until next time, have a wonderful day and God bless.